So welcome to the last webinar, I think, before the IHE-Europe Connectathon Week 2026 in Brussels. In this webinar, the topic is some previews on the IHE Plugathon for openEHR. Just some practicalities and guidelines for this webinar, so please keep your microphone muted. If you have questions during the session, please use the chat box and we will be able to address your question in the second part of the webinar in the dedicated session. Slides will be available on the IHE-Europe Connectathon 2026 webpage, and after the webinar, you can find the recording in the IHE-Europe YouTube channel. Let's have a look about the agenda. We will have some speakers from IHE, from openEHR, and from Deloitte. So I will kindly ask speakers to present themselves. And the agenda is the following. We will have a welcome and context setting. We will have the openEHR perspective, the IHE perspective. We will have David explaining what this Plugathon is and is not, and the structure of the 2026 Plugathon, the participation model and the expectation, and I will present the timeline and the next step. And then at the end, we will have the Q&A session. So, Jürgen, the floor is yours with the welcome and context setting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nicole. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you and give you a bit of the context setting of this. Please, next slide. So what we do in this webinar is that you will hear from both parties, from IHE and from openEHR, our perspectives on why we are doing this. From IHE perspective, I can clearly see that there is a real world demand out there, which is frankly spoken, like I want to get data from an openEHR system and I would want to use the FHIR standard for it, and how shall we do that? And it will be solely the topic of this Plugathon, what exactly we do and what the format of this year's Plugathon is, that we will also see in that webinar. Next slide, please. So from IHE's perspective, we are very much interested, we're very happy that this happens, to cooperate with openEHR. We have started this cooperation last year. We had already a very successful Plugathon in the last Connectathon in Vienna. And this Plugathon was more educational. It was like the first step towards each other, and to give the IHE community a little bit of information on what openEHR is, and what we can do with it and how it relates to IHE. So this year we are already a step further. So IHE is ready to profile stuff again. I mean, we are doing that all of the time. That's our job, one of our jobs. In regard to this problem, which I mentioned in the last slide, how to get data from an openEHR system with FHIR, we actually have some IHE profiles already available, at least for the topic on how to get data from somewhere, now we want to explore, can these IHE profiles, which are currently dedicated to work with FHIR servers actually on the other end, can we use them and maybe update them so that they can work with an openEHR system at the other end the same way, so that the asking system, like the client system, does the same thing as they normally do, like they issue a FHIR query for data and they get it back, but it comes not directly from a FHIR server, but from an openEHR system. That's sort of the technical question. The market is ready for that, definitely. So, I mean, FHIR became this type of choice when it comes to exchanging data. We see that everywhere. I mean, with every month actually passing by, it gets absolutely obvious for new developments and for new things, and even to replace existing systems, FHIR is the standard to choose. It's not complete. It's not final yet, but it's already very much complete, and it has an uptake everywhere. And so that's clearly already the case. And a good prerequisite to deal with that. And on the other hand, we have openEHR, which has solutions more and more deployed everywhere. And so the server systems, if you want, are also there. That means that the market demand is definitely here. And the openEHR colleagues can explain on that later in more detail. So what we want to achieve here with this Plugathon is that these three parties, IHE, HL7 FHIR as base standard underneath of all of this, and openEHR, that we all get closer to each other, so that the vendors get close to each other. But what's not on this slide, also like the standards development people, if you will, in both of these organizations, in IHE and in openEHR, get closer to each other. You will hear on later slides that there are already some projects dealing with exactly that topic. So we have like three parties which want to come together, and also in terms of that, like get information about this, and that they know this is happening, and that they know that on covering this like business need, we're already working on, and we are working on it together. That's actually the purpose of that Plugathon from IHE's perspective. But if you advance one more slide, I believe now can hand over to listen to the openEHR perspective. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see some familiar faces today as well. I'm Abigail Bouvier. I'm going to provide some background on the openEHR perspective. Next slide, please, Nicole. Okay. So we'll start with some collaborations and partnerships. So in response to an increasing move towards unity and collaboration in the wider standards community, openEHR has forged partnerships and prioritized joint initiatives with several other standards bodies, the goal of which is to strengthen global standards collaboration. Both HL7 and openEHR boards and communities are actively looking to increase the joint working. This partnership began with an event in Amsterdam in 2025, and our second joint event is planned this May in Dublin, where we'll be expanding on the work that was started last year. We've signed a partnership agreement with SNOMED CT and recently formed a joint working group with OMOP. And our collaboration with IHE, which includes this Plugathon in Brussels, which we're here to talk about today, as Jürgen already mentioned, will expand on the work that began last year in Vienna. Next slide, please, Nicole. So openEHR is already actively engaged with multiple European initiatives and EU-led programs. We have significant deployments in, I think, currently 18 European countries, and this figure continues to grow. As we already mentioned, there's ongoing work to harmonize the openEHR and FHIR ecosystems to support these large-scale European deployments. We have an active presence on the JIC, and we're associate partners of the XShare consortium, which focuses on enabling cross-border sharing of health data and supporting the European health data space. We're also currently in the process of joining the EHR member community. And moving forward, our EHDS-related work and collaborative projects and partnerships which enable that will remain an important focus for openEHR. Over to you, Ian. Next slide, please, Nicole.
Thanks. So for people who are not familiar with openEHR, I'm just going to say, I'm Ian Michael. I'm one of the openEHR International Board members. For those of you who are not familiar with the openEHR story, just to give a little overview, there are, I guess, three significant components. One is a lot of clinical data modeling or domain modeling around what we call archetypes and templates, joining up with terminology. You can see a mind map of a blood pressure archetype in the middle there. So I guess our expertise is in building some of those detailed clinical domain models. They then are deployed essentially automatically to custom-built data stores we call CDRs, clinical data repositories, which are intended to be, in fact, are vendor neutral and technology neutral. So the names you can see on the right-hand side are a number of the companies that provide those CDR products, essentially smart data stores that understand openEHR data models, which are essentially logical or domain models that clinical people build. The access through to those CDRs is always through a service layer, generally speaking, a REST API, which is standardized across the CDR vendors. So the CDRs are standardized at the API level, and we try to completely standardize the data around these standard data model components. So native data stores in FHIR terms. So next slide, please. So the idea is that increasingly we're standardizing the layer of data inside at the data store level and not just at the exchange level, which is where we're somewhat different traditionally from the HL7 community. And yes, people can interact directly with the openEHR API, and that will be interesting to participants in terms of where IHE profiles come in there. But we do expect, understandably, to be doing a lot of those interchanges with the wider community via FHIR. One of the reasons that we're interested in EHDS and the International Patient Summary is that we want to move up and start to standardize bigger parts of content. How do we do allergies? How do we do lists of problems? Other parts of the, if you like, the EHR data set, because this allows us to standardize at that level across the community. And if we do that, we can then build standardized mappings. So mappings between the openEHR data models and the FHIR data models themselves can be standardized and then used by any participating CDR. So there's an extension to the openEHR standard called FHIR Connect that allows us to define those declarative mappings between openEHR archetypes, templates, and their FHIR equivalents. And one of the participants on our side will be openFHIR, which is an open source engine which understands those FHIR Connect mappings. We will be able to stand up a number of openEHR CDRs behind the standardized REST API for testing purposes and using openFHIR as the engine to map openEHR and FHIR together based on those FHIR Connect standards, and then sit the IHE profiles on top of that. FHIR Connect is very neutral and in fact technology neutral, so we do expect that to be used just as a definition of the mappings, even if people don't use the open FHIR engine or equivalents themselves. So we have a slightly different ecosystem in that what you're not going to see are individual EPR vendors looking to the exchanges and to make use of the FHIR profiles, but essentially a set of services provided by these CDR vendors. So it's a slightly different mix. But of course, lots of companies make use of the CDRs to provide their EPR provision, and increasingly a lot of national shared care record projects. So I hope that helps orientate the openEHR side of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Jürgen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Could you move on one slide? Yeah, so I mean, For those who come from the openEHR side in the audience and don't know IHE very much, this is a short recap what IHE is actually doing. So we are a standards profiling organization. So our task is to sit between the standards and the real e-health projects out there, and to like package the standards in a way for a use case so that it can be easily deployed. Because for deployment, you need that vendors are implementing that stuff, that it is pre-tested, so that when it enters the market, we have like real interoperability and not only theoretical one. So we produce IHE profiles, as we call it, and they can be seen as building blocks for your entire digital health strategy. So we have a number of use cases, e-health use cases already defined. Like an e-health use case is, for example, like patient demographic query or mobile access to health documents and things like this. Very prominently, there is the XDS standards family, which was a very comprehensive set for document exchange, you might have heard. But the new profiles IHE is creating are all based on FHIR. So also the FHIR standard requires like that packaging, so that these very, very many degrees of freedom FHIR offers for its resources are sort of a bit restrained a little bit in the context of the use case that these resources are used, so that real interoperability can happen. Next slide, please. At the end of the day, we would like, or like the people out there doing e-health projects, they would like to operate in a certified environment. So, but to get to certification, you also need to have testing, and testing is the other branch of IHE. So on the one side, there is the profiling, which IHE has traditionally done like alone, but nowadays we do that very much together. For example, together with HL7 in form of Gemini projects, which where the profiling happens with the help of both of the organizations. But also profiling happens more and more like in projects out there. Like Europe is, for example, doing a lot in setting the European standards, which are very close to international standards, and some international standards have already been derived from it. Next slide, please. So what we want to do here is that we, the standards community as in its entirety, receive the requirements from outside, so we can do the standards development in a more directed and better and a more efficient way, because we see in the past this was disconnected very much. So the standards community did stuff, and we hope that we found the pain points out there, but this was not always the case. Now we would like to cooperate more with the government, so with Europe, European Commission, and so on, to have a first-hand view on what's actually requested from our side, so that it can later be implemented and we achieve uptake. We need that efficiency in standards development at the moment, because there are so many use cases still not standardized, much more than the ones who are standardized, which is so. In the middle, we have the base standards development, which is done by HL7, for example, in FHIR, or DICOM contributes standards and so on. Then we have the profiling level, which, as I mentioned, IHE was doing traditionally, but now more and more we do that together. And on the deployment side, to make it market ready, so that we get maybe some like almost off-the-shelf products you can buy and use for that use case, and you have products which are equivalent, and you have competition on the market and meaningful prices. That's still our task. So what we would give back to the world is like a set to that use case consisting of white papers, the standards, of course, the IHE profiles, package all of this, test tools which are used on connectors to already test products there so that they can be tendered and finally procured so that you can implement all of that stuff. And that you do that with tested products. Next slide. And this is the testing continuum which we show to participants. So we have this red left block, which we call enablers. For example, in that category fall the HL7 FHIR connectors, but also, for example, the IHE Plugathons. So that's where we are. And later, when things get more mature, we enter the blue part in the middle, where we come with already like products or prototypes, which are about to become products, which are developed for the market. So they will meet at IHE connectors to test for the market, and then later on maybe to project hackathons which are dedicated to some certain projects and run by the project owners. So this is like the maturity pathway. So we, with this IHE Plugathon, this IHE openEHR Plugathon, we are in the enablers phase still. So we are like experimenting here. And what we will do exactly, I think Davide will now explain to you. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I have 2 more slides. Too early, already. Just to get a bit more technical, we from IHE have actually 2 standards which are like good candidates for being used here. One standard is query for existing data, QED. This standard exists in a like traditional version already since many years, because the querying for an existing data which sits in some sort of data repository was always a use case which we knew that it's needed out there. Now, with the appearance of FHIR, we have query for existing data for mobile, QED-M. And it consists only of 2 actors. So you see how an IHE profile always looks like. You have actors, in our case here, clinical data consumer, that's the client system, and the clinical data source, that's the server system. And there are transactions defined in this profile 1, mobile query existing data, PCC 44. PCC means patient care coordination. That's the IHE development domain it sits in, and 44 is a number, so they clearly identified. And this transaction has some optionalities at these actors. So that's the thing, that's the packaging. So we define, for example, that clinical data source is required to use that transaction. And in this case here, the clinical consumer too, but in other use cases, you have more interaction, and there, you have a clear thing on who needs to implement what, and in other way around, if I buy a product which claims to implement, for example, clinical data source, I can rely on that it follows exactly those specifications of the transaction that will interact with a clinical data consumer, like in a plug and play fashion. Technically, this is a FHIR search, a query, FHIR get, with query parameters. But so the under standard is pretty much just FHIR, but this profile defines, exactly what resources you are able to search for. You can select that options. I'm able to search for medications. I am able to search for immunizations and so on. So this is sort of the packaging, what I'm talking about. Next slide. The other profile which we have that area is cross-enterprise document data element extraction. That's a very complex name for a very complex profile, which deals with the problem that if you get data from a data repository, it sometimes comes from an initial data source. So in past, we had a setting that we had, for example, a document repository, and at its side, there was a data repository, and the data sitting in the data repository was derived from documents partly where they came from, like, for example, laboratory values come naturally from laboratory reports and will be collected in the data repository with a reference out of which document they came from. And to properly close the loop here, from the requester over the data repository back to the document repository and so on, and have all of the references here clearly defined, we created a mixed-DE so that a source system can also get where this data came from. And these two profiles are like our candidates we put into the ring for the Plugathon. And the idea is basically to see what do we need to do on these profiles, maybe like adding some higher openEHR options or something like that, to make them fit for querying an openEHR system instead of like QDM was designed to query directly FHIR server. So, but now I'm finished, and please, David, take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Jürgen. Please, David, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. And thank you all for joining us today in this webinar. Okay, I would like to take a few minutes to clarify clearly what this Plugathon is intended to be and also what is not. Okay, first of all, this initiative is meant to be both an exploratory session and a structured working session. So the idea behind organizing this event is not simply to present ideas or to have high-level discussion about standards, but rather to create a space where different communities can come together and work on concrete interoperability challenges. So in particular, as we see, this Plugathon brings together people working from IHE profiles and people working from openEHR models such as archetype, template, etc. Okay, both ecosystems play an important role in digital health infrastructures. What we would like to do here in this Plugathon is explore how these two worlds can interact more effectively to each other, and especially when it comes to real-world implementation. This is like the goal. So the intention is therefore to move beyond purely conceptual discussions and to focus on practical aspects. We want to look at how existing specifications are actually implemented, how data models are used in practice, and where integration between these two approaches may already be possible. During this Plugathon, we hope to encourage a focused and constructive dialogue between different types of participants, clearly. This kind of participant can be implementers who are building systems, architects who are designing solutions, and experts who are involved in developing and maintaining the specification itself, themselves. Okay, by bringing this perspective together in the same discussion, we hope to better understand where the current approaches already align well, where there might be overlaps, and where there might still be gaps that need for further work. Okay, another key concept, another important point to highlight is that this event is not intended to be a general education seminar. So, in other words, the goal is not to introduce the basics of IHE or openEHR from scratch, but both of these ecosystems have rich set of concept specification and document to be seen. Instead, the assumption for this Plugathon is that participants already have at least some familiarities with both either IHE, openEHR, or both standards. What we want to do here is actually build on that existing knowledge and focus on how these technologies can be used together in practice. Okay, this means that the discussion will focus more on implementation perspective, integration pattern, and concrete examples of how data and services can move between systems. This is like the main goal. In this sense, you can think of this Plugathon as a collaborative working environment when we can openly examine how things work today and where improvements or alignments effort can be beneficial. So, in fewer words, we said that this is not a general educational seminar. We will. This is not purely theoretical, and it might not be like for absolute beginners. With this in mind, the Plugathon can be this kind of type of participant, like vendors implementing interoperability solutions, technical architects and solution designers, openEHR and IHE and FHIR implementers, FHIR expert, or organization involved in digital health infrastructure design. That might be like a good way to participate in this Plugathon. Okay, so this event bridged the gap between theory and practice. So we move from knowledge sharing to active collaboration. We try to create a space for expert dialogue and tangible results. We try to focus on actionable alignment of abstract concepts, and we try to ensure that all outcomes are practical and implementable. Okay, please next slide. Okay, in this other section, I'm gonna like explain the structure of the 2026 Plugathon. Okay, next slide. Okay, let me now walk you through how the Plugathon itself will be structured. Okay, the event will take place over 2 half days, each designed to address a specific aspect of the ongoing collaboration between the different parties. So the structure of the 2 sessions reflect 2 complementary objectives. One on the one hand, consolidating the work that has already been carried out, has already been done, and on the other hand, identifying future priorities based on real implementation needs experiences. Okay, so we said that day one is the consolidation of current work. So the first half day will focus on consolidate this work that has already been done across the IHE and openEHR communities. Okay, we know over the past few years, several initiatives have already explored possible areas of alignment between 2 ecosystems. And rather than starting from scratch, starting new work from scratch, this session will provide an opportunity to review the current work, the current state of this effort that has been done, and ensure that the participants share a common understanding of the progress achieved so far. Okay, in particular, we will look at several areas where alignment efforts have already started, including, for example, the QEDM, which is a IHE profile that allows system to query and retrieve clinical data from different kind of systems. the structure of the IPS in openEHR, the International Patient Summary, which define a standardized dataset providing clinical summary of a patient to support cross-border care and information exchange. And the MHD profile, for example, which aim to enhance the exchange and management of document metadata and facilitate access to share clinical document. Okay, to support this project, this process, this session will include short technical presentation as well as structured discussions. So this contribution will allow participants to share implementation experiences, highlight practical issues encountered in real-world projects, and discuss lessons learned from ongoing deployments. Okay, in other words, the day one is about building a shared understanding of the current landscape and creating a solid foundation, a common ground for the discussion that will follow. Okay, going on the second day, the second half day shift the focus towards more forward-looking work. So the second half day shift from theory to practice, while the first session is mainly about reviewing existing initiative. The second session will be dedicated to gathering inputs from participants about the needs and challenges that emerge from real implementation scenarios. To achieve this, we will organize structured discussion aimed at collecting concrete input from participants that might include relevant use cases, for example, implementation pain points, and gaps in the current interoperability specifications. This step is really important because meaningful progresses in interoperability require that standards development remain closely connected to the real implementation needs. Okay, to support this, we plan to facilitate interactive working session where participants can contribute from their own project and experiences. So the outcome of the Plugathon will not simply be a set of discussions then. We aim to produce tangible output, including, for example, a documented set of priorities clearly emerging from the discussions, identified areas where specification may require extension or further clarification, concrete inputs that can inform future roadmap discussions within both IHE and openEHR communities. So the Plugathon is therefore intended to act as a bridge between implementation experience and specification development. Okay, in conclusion, by the end of the event, we hope to have a clearer picture of where collaboration can deliver the most value in this beautiful healthcare world of healthcare interoperability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Davide. Let me see if I'm able to change the slide now. Okay, we have the last part of Jürgen, and then I think I will be able to reply to the question that was made in the chat. So Jürgen, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Next slide, please. So as you have just heard from Davide, what our plans are for this Plugathon. And this is just like a recap on what we believe that entities of certain types should participate. So, I mean, clearly we have like two sides here, if you want, who want to come closer. Like we have the IT community vendors, which may be partly already sitting on the Connectathon floor, testing products, maybe implementing those profiles, which I mentioned, QEDM and so on. And vendors who are working in the HL7 FHIR space. So for all of those, if you have a business need to get data from openEHR, this Plugathon is definitely for you, because as Davide mentioned, we will have a lot of education there, but we also have a lot of interaction there, where you could speak up, and bring forth some of your experiences in practice. Because IHE, as explained, is all on practice, and openEHR is also very practical. There are real systems that are out there which do some work. So we're not like a theoretical organizations. We want to bring services into the market. So if you are on that space, please come. On the side, of course, go to the openEHR community. If you have an openEHR system and you feel the business of act as a data repository, the FHIR world, please also come. And there is another group which would like to address here, which are integrators. So if your business is that you integrate things, systems together, all of that stuff, then this could be interesting for you in case you want to reach like the firewall to openEHR for some of your customers. Next slide. So in terms of what you would need to prepare, or what level of technical engagement we would like to see is that preparation, of course, is helpful, but for this Plugathon, it's not fully required. So we have like a practical part where we can do some experimentation with systems, but this is not mandatory. As they explained, this is more like a step before, so that we sit together and assess, the different aspects coming from practice, which should come from you, by the way, to tell us what are your practical problems out there when you want to connect those two worlds with each other, and we bring that into some form which we can further advance in IHE's profiles, and also maybe in the projects of openEHR mentioned. But of course, if you can bring your system, because we will have some experimentation, we will maybe look on things, people can share their solutions to point out some certain aspects we would like to work on, which we should consider. So of course, that's like a trade show, but we are on a practice level. So if you have something, please bring it. If you bring an IHE-based system, then actually you don't need to change anything here, because the clear attempt is to speak to the outside with standard QED language, if you want. So if you have a system already being a clinical data consumer, you are fine, because it's the other side need to deliver. So you query as you usually do, but the other side, in that case, an openEHR system, it was back. On the other hand, if you are an openEHR system, you also don't need to change the system. The only thing you need to have is AQL. I mean, the magic here is that there is something needed in between, which are, for example, those projects mentioned, openFHIR, and so on. And so there, in other words, there is no much preparation for you and not a high barrier to attend. Of course, it would be helpful if you would familiarize yourself with the IHE profiles mentioned in this webinar, if you're not already done so. And from the technical level, of course, you should send some experts in terms of that they understand the system. So don't do marketing here. We do technical implementation, or design or specification or implementation. So it's more technicians needed. If depending on which side you're coming from, so either being skilled in IHE profiles and FHIR, or being skilled in openEHR, depends where you are, and we will try to bring all together. Next slide, please. So the contribution model here, as already explained, we will have these structured discussions and we will have interactive working sessions. So in any case, to join this Plugathon is helpful for you. So either you can participate proactively in the discussion and influence, the next steps we will do, or you just participate and more listen, learn the others, and to see, hey, where are we when we're talking about the connection between the FHIR world and the openEHR world. So it definitely makes sense in both settings. And very important, as David already mentioned, we would like to hear your real world experiences, because the actual plan here is to figure out the next steps in how the IHE profiles, for example, need to be amended, or how the openEHR project or so on should maybe do something. But this is on the next slide, please. So the next steps and what will happen after depends very much on the outcome of this Plugathon, but definitely the goal is to move closer together. So there will be a follow-up in any case. Depending on the outcome of the discussions at the Plugathon, we maybe identify potential change proposals to the IHE profiles, QEDM or also MXD, maybe to include the maybe an openEHR option or something like that. We need to see, and we need to see discuss that with the IHE development domains, how they stand for it. And openEHR, the same thing, people from openEHR and FHIR Connect, I believe, will be there. So we can directly talk to these guys and see what we can achieve. I believe that's it. The next slide. So to close, please listen now to the timeline of Nicole, but we would all be very happy to welcome you in Brussels. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jürgen. So we see very briefly the agenda. As David has said, we have two different parts. One is for consolidation and one is for use case and filling the gaps. We have the welcome, of course, of both party, plus how to query for data with IHE profiles, QEDM, MXDE, and MHD. Then we will have the coffee breaks, the current openEHR and FHIR connections. We will have a workshop discussion and experimentation with the goal is how to align the IHE profile with the current FHIR connection projects. Then we will have lunch, the use case overview, the future direction, and ending with the roadmap, next steps, and closing. It's Thursday, 26th of March, full day at the EGG during the IHE-Europe Connectathon Week 2026. To attend the Plugathon for openEHR, you have to fill in this form. We have also published a post on this, but we will publish a post with the slides and recording of this webinar, and with also this link to register. You can see in this slide the fee, but if you are already registered for the IHE-Europe Connectathon floor, no payment, of course, is required. Okay, so I will, first of all, thank you to all the speakers, Abigail, Ian, Jürgen, and Davide. Thank you for being here and make this possible. And okay, so I think we can move to the questions. You can, of course, open your mic and speak up. Let's see. Yes, we will publish the slides and the recording as soon as possible, and we will have also a post on LinkedIn about this. Yes, please.
Thank you. Just trying to, yeah, it's the beach. Well, you never know what the background is going to be, but that's fine. So I think it would help. Sorry, apologies. My name is Sheref. I work for Ocean Health Systems. I'm on the openEHR side of things, also part of the FHIR openEHR collaboration. Senior fellow at openEHR and all-around technical person, I guess. So I think this is going to be an excellent opportunity. And I think what would help if we could get any questions, concerns completely off the record, anyone from the IHE or FHIR side has in their mind about openEHR, and if we can receive them, then I think we can adjust our efforts and our work for the 26th, also trying to answer those questions. Because let's be honest, all these things are quite specialized and people won't have time to, just clarify everything. So if we know what the pain points and questions and confusion, are from anyone from outside of openEHR, when we arrive, we may also make an effort to, just address those with examples or, just to the point work, hopefully, fingers crossed. So I don't know who would be able to disseminate that, but if it's possible, I think it would help the openEHR team a lot. Other than that, looking forward to seeing you all. Thank you.
Anyone that wants to reply to Seraph comments?
I have a question about another use case, which and I don't know if it is possible, but I'm very curious in the integration between the IHE SDC profile with FHIR to integrate that with openEHR, so that you have more data governance on the questionnaires. It would be a very nice use case, in my opinion, which a lot of customers ask for. Sorry, my name is Igor Schoonbrood. I'm an enterprise architect with the academic hospital in Maastricht, in the Netherlands. And I see that even with a few, I say, manufacturers or software providers who want this also, or are building this also, only there's no profile for. So I don't know if there is a possibility to get it also in the Plugathon, or maybe on another way. Question mark.
If I might take that, Nicole. Yeah, Igor, to be honest, it's not something I don't think any of us had thought about. And it's probably a little off to the side of what we had planned in terms of the more technical connections, if you like, on around the data. But it's certainly something I'd be happy to talk about at the event. I'm more on the clinical side and on the, structured data capture. And I know there are things happening within the openEHR and FHIR communities around openEHR emitting questionnaires and whatever. There are some projects going. So it may not be a headline on the agenda, but I suspect we'll find 2 or 3 people that might want to engage in some discussions about how that might work.
Yeah, because for me, as IHE looks at process flows, at use cases, and the technical part is the secondary. So this is a very nice use case, and I see a lot of work done in as well as in openEHR with where the archetypes prompts will be modeled and archetypes, but in FHIR questionnaires it is also modelized. So a lot of double work. So if we can look how we can integrate it, I think it is really nice opportunity.
If I may, I think we can, I agree with Ian that this is, all of the form capture is like a totally different topic as we want to target here. So we will not be able, to be honest, to substantially work on this. But what we could do is maybe that we, at the end of the Plugathon, when we come to the conclusions and next steps, that we also make an official session of new ideas, things like this to prepare, maybe working on that what you just said in future Plugathons. But honestly, we will probably not be able to work on this since it's so much different. I also would like to reply to Sheriff. So thanks for your comment. That's very good to hear that someone deep inside the openEHR community is coming. Yes, so if we can collect anything beforehand, we'll certainly do. Not sure how much we succeed this. From IHE perspective, however, I can already say that from our perspective, it would be nice. So because knowing our IHE vendors who have already implemented QEDM, they already have an actor which works and which, according to the profile, if you study it, is just saying, hey, if you want to get medication out of a FHIR server, then you do it please exactly in that way, with those options and those degrees of freedom, but not more than that. And from IHE perspective, we would like to uh, extend that so that not only a FHIR server can ask like that in that way, but also like an openEHR system. So that sort of, for the client side, there is no change to just switch the backend system to a totally different system, and we do some magic in the middle, which makes that happen so that these requests are translated in archetype real language, and bring back the proper results, and maybe even extending that to provenance with MXDE and so on. And also like the storing of an IPS, which is a very prominent standard in an openEHR system, is a topic. So that is that's where we come from, and happy to do anything needed on our side to amend the profile to make that happen. But obviously, we need something in the middle doing that magic work. Now, as Sheriff, I guess you want to reply.
Yeah, I think conceptually we're definitely thinking along the same lines, and I can see Theo. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Apologies if I'm not. I do my best when it comes to that.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thanks, sir.
Yeah. So I see where you're coming from, but I think, okay, to answer both points. One, I think there is a golden opportunity here if you think from an IHE perspective, because IHE at the moment, in the context of FHIR, is defining basically, just two ends of a communication in a, guaranteed out of the box, you can rely on this way, but there are no EHR system standards with complying vendors other than openEHR that I'm aware of. So IHE can keep everything it has. And as you said, we can then create an opportunity to extend the IHE scope in some cases where you not only know how the FHIR communication should work, in accordance with IHE profiles, but you can also know how a whole platform, but it's technology agnostic, can sit behind that. And I think that that's a very interesting extension. And as you said, the magic that needs to happen, between the current boundaries of IHE's FHIR profiles and openEHR systems is what we can focus on. We have Ian, we have Sebastian Janku, we have, I'm not the only one from, openEHR, it's just these, my colleagues and friends have been putting decades like I have. So, and I think, Theo, in response to what you said, you are absolutely right. But I think this is about identifying patterns in creating that, now that you named it, it's going to remain as the magic layer, identifying patterns about how to do that. So I know these profiles are the focus, but if you arrive with yours, we may be able to see if what we're doing there is applicable to what you have in mind, or does it need any extension? So from, I'm being selfish, but for me, that's a requirement analysis opportunity. But if you arrive, well, that's a free requirement analysis opportunity for you. So I would see it that way. But I think there's a lot of exciting collaboration possible along the axis, which is, I think, fleshing out here. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I think that's we are now entering already the discussions we should have at the Plugathon, to be honest, because exactly that was
I
to
agree.
be expected. That we need to do now a step more closer to each other, understand each other, and figure out whatever it is to do as a next step, so that our two worlds can come together. Okay, are there no more comments? I think Theo, did I interrupt you saying something? No, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, back to you, Nicole.
So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much again, for speakers, and for the interesting discussion from the audience. Let me change my slides. So hope to see you in Brussels. If you need any help, please, you know my email. And thank you so much. Have a lovely day.